I think I'm finally starting to feel tired. I sat atop my bed and observed my room. The curtain over the window had been ever so slightly ruffled, an unusual lack of perfection on Pendleton's part, allowing me to view the outside. But with the fog as it was, I could hardly see more than the silhouette of the moon. Our teacher said the fog contains toxic substances from the city's factories. I wonder if that's really true. In a sense, that would make it London's greatest adversary, a weapon created by its own hand. As I worked to view the moon more closely, I heard an unexpected noise. Something was tapping the window. What could that be? The wind? How alarming. I was wide awake again as my body tensed from nerves. Soon after, I heard the sound again. It was much more apparent than the last. Is someone there? Try as I did, I was barely above a whisper. The room was, to my misfortune at the moment, much too large for anyone but me to hear. But what misfortune was there if no one was around to hear me? And yet...
It's me.
A muffled response came from outside. Muffled but still familiar. Jack, is that you?
Yes, I'm out here. I need to talk to you about something. I couldn't write anything proper for your letter. Sorry.
Did he find the letter I left him?
I need you to open this window. We need to talk.
My entire body began to shiver. Whether it was from relief, fear, or happiness, I didn't know. It may well have been all of them. I just didn't know.
Can you open it?
He must have seen that I wasn't moving. All manner of scenarios began to overlap in my mind. Well, heck you, Pendleton. I know I promised you, but you went behind my back. And this boy risked a lot to come here. I didn't respond, but I did stand and approach the window. Was he the Jack I knew? Or was he a devil better known as Jack the Ripper? Whatever the answer to his identity, if he wanted me dead, then my last day alive would have long since passed. I pulled away the curtain and flipped the latch that secured the window. Upon opening it, I stepped aside to allow the man who could be a friend or the maker of my death inside. My trembling wouldn't stop.
Thanks.
The fog, heavy as it was, briefly plumed into my room. And finally, Jack appeared, placing his feet on the frame. You are so tall. Or maybe it's the hat. You're here, Jack. The trembling grew worse. What was I feeling? What could I say now?
You afraid? Shan't be if you can help it. Right here's the Jack Millers you went to school with, and no one different. But then, you're a brave gal to let me in after what's happened.
You could have killed me much earlier if you wanted, but you didn't. All this time I've wanted to know why, and... I looked at Jack, but when I did, I lost my voice.
What?
There was so much I wanted to ask him, but my emotions swelled to create a hitch in my throat. It nearly hurt to speak, but I pushed on. Everything I wrote in my letter, I meant all of it. I've wanted to see you again all this time. Jack appeared taken aback by my confession.
Oh, I see.
Why didn't you kill me then, Jack? And his discomfort grew. He turned his eyes away as if he couldn't bear to look at me.
I didn't 'cause you're an important friend. I couldn't do it when I saw your face. But if someone else were to have seen me, I'm sure I...
Jack cast his eyes downwards.
You wear the crown of a juggins if I ever seen one. Anyone else come up to your window, don't chance to open it. Don't matter who it is.
After you told me to open it for you? That's a fair contradiction.
Won't deny it. I'm happy you trust me. But take care in the future.
Jack reached out his hand and touched my hair. I couldn't see where, but I was still startled by the touch. Was it the claw hand? What is it?
Nothing. Just a bit of dirt.
He smiled in the slight, serene way that gave me pause upon seeing it. I didn't know he could smile so sweetly.
So, I haven't seen you in a bit. You've been well.
Me? Well, why, you're the one who took leave for some illness.
Right. Sorry. I didn't come back even after it went away. A lot to manage since then.
A lot to manage, I'm sure. And with all that's happened, I never had any idea how you were doing. Jack, where have you been all this time? What have you...
Where? The East End. I've always lived there. I told you when we first met. I meant more, I had a lot to do. Work for me dad.
Jack, are you the Ripper from the paper everyone has been talking about? I asked him timidly, but I didn't look away.
Well, yes and no.
How does that work?
Suppose I mean more that the man responsible for the murders in the paper isn't me. They're likely to keep at it, but I don't know any more about his next target than you.
Wait, then do you know nothing about the letter in red?
Letter?
Yes, this one here. I quickly searched for and presented the photograph for him to inspect, and his brows twisted quite genuinely at the sight of it.
I've never seen this before. I've only ever written to you.
I was right then. I only asked because the investigation team suspect this may have been from the Ripper.
This is awful. He's gone out of his way to make it like I wrote it myself. Doesn't look at first glance. That's what makes it smart.
Yeah, I'm like, I think your dad set you up. His lip curled at the corner in a snarl. The letter, and whoever penned it clearly, made him visibly ill with disgust. Oh, you don't know what a relief that is. If you had truly written this...
And I should think I never would. I'd never call you pretentious or anything else.
So engaged was Jack in his anger that I wasn't able to tell if he stopped talking to keep calm or if he simply didn't have the heart to continue. Jack? What is it?
It's nothing. You're still a queer sort in my eyes. I grew up in the shadows. Always kept to my own business. The city, the academy. I never tried standing out. Didn't want to. Yet you had to go and notice me. No. You found me. Even presently, I didn't know if I'd reach you with the security as it is. I just wanted to see you. And you led me right to you. Came to me.
Of course I did! You've never left my mind all this time, Jack. I didn't know what was happening to you. This whole time I've been racked with worry. Admitting it made my chest tighten splendidly with emotion. It wasn't a single emotion. My body had gone awry with them, tugging itself in a number of directions. But the worry, the doubt, the uncertainty were no longer among them. Those feelings, which had been pricking my heart like tiny icicles, now thawed as snow in the warmth of spring.
I swear it I do, that you're too blessedly soft for your own blessed good. I wish I hadn't caused you worry.
His hand touched my shoulder lightly and moved down my arm. When he took me by the wrist, his thumb rubbed against the top of my hand as if to comfort me. I really hope he's not wearing these claw daggers when he's doing that. All is forgiven. It's been one surprise after another, but you're here, and you're healthy. That's everything I needed.
You're a fool. You've seen me murder a man, but you let me in here. You don't even act afraid.
Oh, that isn't true. I was certainly afraid then, but you had me promise not to say anything. I know now that I ought to have stayed calm and analyzed the situation better. But I wanted to believe in you. with all my heart.
That only helps what I just said, you know.
As his smile went from serene to bitter, I remembered. This moment wouldn't last. He would soon be gone, and to that my chest only grew tighter.
Emily, I must have you listen closely to what I'm about to say. It's important.
What is it? Jack's tone seemed to drop in response to the gravity of the situation. Aw, I'm like, when are you gonna get to the point? It's like, how are you? It's been a long time. How's school? I'm like, you came here to save her life, so... And apparently he was wearing his claw thing, so grand.
You've got to run away from here. You're in danger.
Jack? Tension, unease, fear, and so on. Hints of each carried from his tone to his eyes, now opened wide and glassed at the surface in a way not unlike the build-up before one cries.
I'm not the one out to kill you. I'm just the bottom rung of a particular organization. But that's something no one should have known. So really, I was meant to kill you when you seen me. But I didn't. I couldn't do it. The worst person who could have learnt that's found out. And now, he's got a mind for killing you himself. You've got celebrity in London, and you're a detective recognized by Her Majesty. It would be simple enough work to find this mansion.
But it's being protected by Scotland Yard. Pendleton is keeping watch as well, and he instructed me very sternly not to leave.
That's not going to be enough. If you want something done, no amount of protection will do you any favors. Me standing here proves it well enough.
That may be so, but I opened the window because it was you. I wouldn't do that for anyone else.
Cheeky gal. I'm sure your parents would be none too pleased if they knew.
Although it wasn't his intention, the words did sting, and I became envious. A bit of paperwork was all that connected him and his adopted father, but that still gave him a family. Meh. They aren't with us anymore. They died when I was a girl. That's why I've a duty to protect my family's name, and no one, not even a murderer, shall convince me to flee my home. Were I to run, the empire they fought to defend would be forever tarnished. And what of the servants? They've chosen to stand with me even at this awful hour.
It's certainly a complex affair. You're young, but you've taken to being out of the household like it's the natural thing to do.
It is natural for me, and I won't turn my back on it. Think of something so precious to you that nothing would sway you to change it, and you'll understand why I choose to protect the Whiteley name.
Foolish, cheeky, and reckless.
Not as reckless as you, Jack.
I cannot argue any different. If you're staying, then I shall leave. Give my regards to the others.
Jack extended his hand to me once more, though he did not brush away dirt or stroke my hand as he did previously. I observed it with perplexion and sadness, the latter upon noticing that the bed of his nail still had traces of blood from his injury. Jack?
A handshake. We're friends, ain't we? Dad, I'll return to the academy so we can't graduate together. That makes this our farewell.
What is this nonsense? I did take Jack's hand. But it wasn't for something as ridiculous as a distant handshake. I had no desire to say farewell to him, and so I wouldn't. You'll come back to class, won't you?
I may perhaps go back.
The response lacked commitment of any kind. Jack's eyes shifted to the side as a boy's would during a scolding that was well-deserved. It made me no more confident he would return than he appeared to be. But the hope that he would was prettier. We'll all be waiting for you. Me, Holmes, Watson, Marple, and Mr. Mackenzie, absolutely. They're all eagerly praying to your good health. We can't wait to study with you again. And it would be lovely if we started to lunch together as well.
I wouldn't mind that. That does sound lovely.
He took his claws off, finally. his nails.
Except returning to pharmacology or taking lessons on proper etiquette. Can't bring myself to care for those.
Really? Oh, but I imagine by the time we're graduated, you'll have come to like them very much. Even if they never become useful to you, learning to study in itself is a fantastic skill worth being learnt.
I suppose.
And it doesn't have to be through a letter as with me. As long as you put your best foot forwards, you already have everything you need to make loads of friends in class. You're speaking to me now with ease, so I'm quite certain you can do the same with everyone else. In fact, I promise you can. Just please, please. My voice cracked. What in heaven's name was I going on about? I couldn't tell him I wanted him to return to school. I couldn't tell him I didn't want him to leave. What did telling him those scraps of hope solve? There was no solution I could present that made everything right again. As such, I came to understand the pain of being powerless.
Come on now. Do you have to give me that sour face? Here.
Hear what? Jack, with actions kinder than words and feelings swayed by whatever face I wore for the present, removed a gift from his breast pocket.
Sorry for taking so long to give it back. Your letter said there was no rush, but I have a preference not to keep you waiting longer than necessary.
It was my handkerchief.
Besides, you look as if you need it now.
I do? Why?
You look about ready to cry.
Why must he be so considerate? Why fret over me so? He filled me with a pleasure I wouldn't be quick to forget. Oh, was he ever sweet? And being sweet made me mourn the moment more than if he were cold. I'm all right. I prefer you keep it for now.
But it's yours.
It's a wonder you don't have one yourself with how often you're injured. You might need it again. But I'm only lending it to you. You'll have to return it to me one day. It was my pleasure to place my hand over his own and close it to ensure the handkerchief stayed with him.
No thanks. I don't need it. I really...
Hesitant to accept, Jack went to withdraw his hand, but as he did... Oh! A flower vase near to us toppled. It did not break as it hit the ground, but the noise drummed loud enough to elicit a flicker of panic between us. We've been caught! One of the servants was bound to have heard it.
Bah! Damn!
My first thought was to tell Jack to run.
My lady!
And yet, before the words left me, Pendleton could be heard crying out from beyond my door, his voice charged with alertness. Oh god, he's gonna shoot him in front of me! It took no time at all before the door was flung open. He's definitely gonna shoot him right in front of me.
Don't move, Jack Millers!
Pendleton, equipped with gun in hand, stood with the barrel pointed directly at Jack. Pendleton!
Keep your hands where I can see them. Step away from her. My lady, get behind me.
Please wait, Pendleton! He's...
No. Shan't run away with your temper, good butler.
Oh no. Oh no, these boys. I was panicked. Jack, however, who stood before Pendleton, carried on as if he were in no danger at all. He played the situation with amusement, though only just to portray an apt amount of confidence.
I'm a former schoolmate of hers, and pointing a gun makes for a less than jolly joke, if I may say. Am I expected to believe a simple schoolmate could evade the police on watch and enter a room on the first floor? I've looked into your history, and it tells me you're plenty more than what you claim to be. You are one of Spellbound's assassins, a man known in criminal circles as Jack the Ripper. You were to enroll in Harrington Academy as a spy. Your task was to observe its students, and with its public ties to both the police and the royal family, it made the perfect place to retrieve information Spellbound could use to their benefit. Sharp man. Well done. It wasn't easy, I admit. I understand well that you've been protecting him, my lady, but he's done little more than to manipulate your feelings to his favor. Don't you dare come near her again!
Pendleton! He came to warn me that I was in danger! If I didn't speak now, Jack would only be mistreated as a criminal. I couldn't have that. I couldn't, but Jack, seemingly content with the perception, shook his head.
You needn't mind it, Emily. Only a fool would believe it. And he ain't a fool. If you have a man like him keeping watch on you, then I've got nothing to fear. So, goodbye.
Jack! A flash of movement, a single intake of breath on my part, heightened senses erupting from all corners of the bedroom, and there I stood aghast as Jack dashed to the window for a swift exit.
My lady, stand aside!
The gun went from a warning to a weapon as Pendleton went to pull the trigger. I can't stand idle. Don't jump in front of the bullet. Don't make Pendleton kill you, you crazy woman. Don't! I grabbed Pendleton's arm. I could not stop him, but the force of my grip shifted his aim. The gun fired. It claimed no one's life, instead bolting through the roof just outside the window. The damage was as such that I could hardly see it.
Whew. My lady, what are...
He stared open-mouthed. I'm sorry.
I missed my chance.
He clicked his tongue. My actions did nothing to stay his anger. Smoke faintly plumed from the barrel. And Jack, to my delight, though I was careful not to show it, was gone.
You're to stay away from the window, my lady, and do not open it under any circumstances. Have I made myself clear?
Truly, I am sorry. What was this? I hadn't expected my voice to tremble. My lady, what's happened? Are you injured? Alicia, short of breath and unnerved, burst into the room with several other maids accompanying her. Pendleton issued orders in their direction with great immediacy. They're very brave to run up here.
Alicia, telephone Sergeant Ryan. Inform him that an intruder has fled from the mansion's north-northeast.
The officers lining the mansion's borders turned in unison as they heard a loud burst echo through the fog.
That was gunfire! It came from the first floor!
One another was alerted. Watson, who was still near. He too turned toward the source of the noise, becoming pale while simultaneously kissing God's hand that he happened to be around to hear any horrors. Oh, Watson.
That's from... Could that have been Emily's room? But how? They couldn't have gone past Scotland Yard.
His mind was made up quickly. Watson turned heel and ran in the opposite direction. There would be no need for him at the mansion.
If he intends to return to the East End now, then he's bound to pass through here.
Are we gonna get a rematch of Watson and Jack? A spot-on assessment, it would seem, as he continued at full speed and silence, puffs of breath trailing behind from the cold. He found his man. Jack was within his sights.
It is you! Then you... Emily was... Afraid I don't know. If you're worried, why not go back to the mansion and have yourself a show? Free tickets. Huh. So long as I capture you, that's all I want! That's so. You're wanting to be killed first, then. You're a bolder chap than I took you for.
And so he raised his claws. I can't believe we're getting a rematch! Jack closed the gap between the two, swinging upwards as his fist offense. First offense. I mean, yes, there's fists involved, but no.
I didn't say I want to be killed. I said I want to catch you. Bloomin' idiot. You think I don't know how to avoid capture?
Watson did not take well to standing solely in defense. By instinct and a short temper, he pulled back his fist to swing in Jack's direction.
Think you got me hooked when that's the best you got.
Watson failed in his assault, and Jack slipped from his sights. All he could see, no matter which direction he turned, was a thick fog swirling about into night's blackness.
Are you all right?
An officer, having heard two voices in the distance, arrived at the scene.
Very, but Jack was here. Jack Millers was here.
I'm so sorry. Had I come here just a bit sooner.
Damn! He can't have gone back to the East End to... Oh, Watson! There you are, lad!
Ryan soon followed, looking genuinely short of breath.
We've just received a message from the inspector. Did we? Anything change? Very much so. He said another murder's been committed in Whitechapel. What? That's impossible. I'm afraid it is possible. It matches the Ripper's brutal methods, and it was the second to have occurred tonight. The first occurred about an hour before. No, that's not it. It's impossible because I fought with him here a few minutes ago. Then what about what the inspectors said? It's the truth. The most recent murder is estimated to have taken place about 1:30 a.m., whilst the other one around 12:45.
Jack has got, alibis now.
This doesn't make sense. Even with a cab, it would take a half hour to get from the Whiteley mansion to Whitechapel. The first murder I could see, but the second one couldn't have been committed by him. You're right. If he was here with you, then what is going on with this case? Well, did you apprehend him? No. We found the bodies, but Jack the Ripper was nowhere to be seen. For God's sake, pull yourselves together, and I'll do the same. Let's return to the mansion and see if anything more's happened there. All right. Now, hold on. Why am I being ordered around? I'm your elder. Come on, hop to it. Yes, sir, coming. What horror. He's never murdered twice in the same night before.
Nor has he gone to the effort of scrawling graffiti all about the wall. I can only assume he's gained an appetite for taunting the yard. Indeed, I don't doubt it. And yet questions remain. What possessed you to remove the graffiti before a more thorough investigation? Well, preserving the crime scene is common sense. How do you expect me to cooperate with your men when they cannot adhere to the most elementary laws of our work?
That will do, Father. You're behaving like a child.
Perhaps so. Seems my frustrations have bubbled to the surface.
I noticed, but the police have been useless for some time. I don't see why it would frustrate you now.
That they have, Junior. Yes, I'm more at fault for having higher expectations. Well, if we could move on to the case, gentlemen. The victim before us is a 44-year-old Swedish prostitute. She was very tall for a woman, as well as an exceptionally heavy drinker. Alcohol poisoning had long caused her to go mad.
The Holmeses then went to inspect the crime scene as best as they were able.
Inspector, we've acquired a scrap of bloodied white cloth in a waterway along Dorset Street. We found trace evidence that the waterway was used to wash away a large quantity of blood, too. Well. There was a square-shaped bit of cloth removed from the victim's apron, as it so happens.
We're certainly in for a very long night.
That we are. But I'm sure the culprit cut this piece from the woman's apron. Now, if you don't mind me saying so, I've a theory he used his knife.
Silence, Inspector!
Dang, the two Holmeses were in sync for once.
Pardon me.